Okay, so remember this function? It's back. Exact same function, exact same points that we just got done talking about. There's one more thing we're going to do in our transformations unit here. It's kind of a scaled down transformations unit, but the last thing we're going to do is we are now going to put a multiplier in front of our function, or in a minute here we'll have a multiplier inside the function. Now we already talked about if that was a negative, just a -1, we know a -1 would just flip everything over the x-axis. But this is not a -1. What if we put a multiplier of 1/2 in front, or possibly a whole number like a 2 in front? What does that do to our graph? Okay? And in short, what you want to write down here, what we're going to do is we're going to take all of our points and we're going to multiply the y values. Let me go back up here. By a, whatever a is. If a is 1/2, you multiply all your y values by 1/2. If a is 2, then you're going to multiply all your y values by 2. Okay? So, looking at our first example here, we have 1/2 times h of x. And h of x is already on the screen there. So, in order to go ahead and perform this compression, this is called a compression. Anytime that you have a, let me see here. Anytime that you have a fraction being multiplied, this is going to be called a, whoa, I do not want that highlighter. Compression. Now we are not messing with x values here. We're only messing with the y values. So if I take, for instance, the point -3, 2, I'm just going to multiply the y value by 1/2. 2 times 1/2 is 1, so this point comes down to here, a y value of 1 versus a y value of 2. The point 42 is also going to come down here to the point 41. Okay, because I'm multiplying the y value by 1/2. And this over here becomes -3, 1. All right. Now, when I do these other two, we're going to have a bit of a fraction, a decimal, or whatever, however you want to graph it. But the point is, when I take -9 here, and I multiply it by 1/2, half of -9 is -4.5. So this point is actually moving all the way up here to, let's see, -1, -2, -3, -4, right about there. -4.5. The point 5, -5, -3 is going to become -5, -1.5. So as you can see now, let me go ahead and label these. This is 6, -4.5, or -4.5. And this is this becomes -5, -1.5. Okay? That looks like a 7. Sorry about that. That's certainly not a 7. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's combine or connect our dots here. Connect the points. And let's see what a compression looks like. Well, what a compression is taking something and kind of smushing it together, and it's going to make it go wider. Okay, that's what a compression is. You think of like taking something and compressing it. You push down on it, makes it go wider. That's a compression. Multiplying the y values by 1/2. What if I multiply all the y values by 2 in our second example? Well, when I do that, the point -5, -3, when I multiply -3 by 2, that jumps me down here to -3, 4, 5, -5, -6. This up here is going to move up and become the point -3, +4. This is going to be 4, 4. And And then down here, oh man, this one is going to go all the way down, way out of our, even out of the screenshot possibly here, way down here. And that's going to be the point 6, negative 18. So now as we combine these points, you'll see what's called a stretch. Stretching or compressing. That's what that multiplier does. So let me go ahead, I'll go green with this so we can see how this looks. And hopefully you can get the idea here that this thing is just being stretched out longer and narrower. So a fraction is going to compress it, whereas a whole number is going to stretch it with the number in front. Now if we look at the last, these are going to be the last two things that we're going to do as far as all of our transformations go for now. Now this multiplier has moved to the inside. Okay? Okay, so when we do have this multiplier that's on the inside of our function, essentially what we're going to do is we are going to divide our x values by a, whatever a is. So there's a small difference here, you see. Up at the top, we were multiplying y values by a. Down here, we're going to divide x values by a. So our x values, of course, in the ordered pair, we have an x and a y. Once again, still have my highlighter. Slipping today. Okay, so I always have an x and a y. X is our first term every time. Y is our second term. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to divide each of our x terms by a. I'm actually going to start with the second example here because it's easy to divide by 2. Easy to divide by 2. So this point here, when I divide that by 2, the x value, I'm going to end up with the point 2, 2. So it's to the right 2 and up 2. I'm just doing 4 divided by 2. The point 6, 9, when I do 6 divided by 2, is going to give me the point 3, negative 9. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Did that wrong. Hold on a second. That's not right. Because I just moved it up. I shouldn't be moving it up. I should be moving it to the left. There's the point 3, negative 9. Okay. Now we have to deal with a few little fractions here. So negative 3 divided by 2 is a negative 1/2. So that's going to move me into here. So that's negative 1.52. And then negative 5 divided by 2 is going to give me negative 2.5. That moves me into here, negative 2.5, comma, negative 3. So I've divided all my x values by 2. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect these dots. This also turns out to be a bit of a stretch. And I'll go ahead and also throw this line in here. Okay. Now, that takes care of that. Over here, though, we're talking about dividing by 1/2. Now, quick little refresher. If I take the number, say, 6, and divide it by 1/2, that's not the same thing as taking half of 6. That would be 6 times 1/2. 6 divided by 1/2, I change division to multiplication and flip the fraction using its reciprocal. So 6 times 2 is 12. So 6 divided by 1/2 is actually 12. It's the same thing as 6 times 2. Okay, so this point down the far right, this is actually going to become the point 12, negative 9. Okay, because I did 6 divided by 1/2. 4, 2 is now going to become 8, 2, because 4 divided by 1/2 is the same thing as 4 times 2, which which is 8. Negative 3 divided by a half is going to become negative 6, because negative 3 divided by a half is the same thing as negative 3 times 2. And then negative 5, negative 3 is going to become negative 10, negative 3. Okay, so now let's put all these together. We'll have ourselves our last transformation, and that will be